everybody, Brian here from the Cabinet Joint. Today our topic is base double entry cabinets. We're going to show you how to assemble it. Before I do that, I want to walk you through some of the basics about this box. On the bases, these are available from 24 to 36 inches. When you get up into the higher sizes, you can get double doors with them. The 24-inch, you can get a single door with it. They come in 31.5 to 42-inch heights, so you got a lot of flexibility and variation there with your heights. The way these are typically used because of the double entry is either as an island piece, which is what this is, a freestanding island. This customer is actually intending to put, they're going to cut the toe kick off. They want to put casters in the bottom, I believe, and make this a movable island. But you can also use this on peninsulas. So if you have a seating area, kind of a eating kitchen or dining room, a living room, whatever, then you have the main kitchen. You can use this box as part of your peninsula going out and put your drawer box pulling into the kitchen, and the false drawer is facing the non-workable area. The thing with these you have to remember is typically, unless you're doing it as an island, one side of this is going to go against other cabinets and is going to be unfinished. So you do have to, we'll show you this in the video, you do have to make a decision on which side you want the drawer to pull out based on your finished end. You can also get some options with this like any other cabinet. Leg extension option, flush toe to make it look more furniture-y, whatever suits you. Shelves on this are full depth. They're not 3/4 depth like Conestoga's typical bases. In this case, they go from the back of the frame to the back of the frame, so the shelf won't slide forward and back. So you're good there. And you can put pull-outs in it and those kinds of things if you want to get creative, but primarily these are just used as peninsula cabinets and the shelf. So let's get into the assembly on this box. It is a little bit different because you're dealing with two front frames. This particular cabinet has 30-inch depth, so it's got some strange glides and some other things going on, but you'll get the idea on how this goes together, and if you have any questions, you can always call your cabinet coach. So let's get to it. Okay, everybody, let's get started on this base double entry assembly. Before I get going on the assembly itself, I just want to do a quick run through on the tools that you're going to use and also what parts come with the cabinet. So pretty much all of our cabinets, the same tool list, stapler, 1.8" staples. We have our dead blow hammer, bottle of glue, Tight Bond 2 works great. We have a couple of clamps that I'll use in this assembly to hold the spreader strip on. You'll see that acts as a nice second set of hands. A pencil is always good. I just like to keep one in my ear. And then we have a wet rag for wiping out extra glue. And some other things might come up as you're going through the assembly, a pair of pliers or whatever based on what you run into, but that's pretty much the basics. The cabinet itself, this is a base double entry, so you're able to access the cabinet from both sides, which means it gets two front frames. You can see I got one on the table ready to go and the other one's here. They're going to be both the same size front frames. I have two cabinet sides. I have my cabinet bottom. I have my two spreader strips that act as the top. My two toe kick backers, because I have two toe kicks. It's a double entry cabinet. And these two little blocks that hold your false drawer front on. You'll see how these are used when I actually do that later in the assembly. These should ship with the cabinet. Every now and then you'll find your blocks for false drawers, whether it be for a sink base or a base double entry. Sometimes they're packed in your hardware box, ironically. So if you don't find them with the cabinet, hunt around in your hardware box. Speaking of hardware, you're going to have drawer glides, hinges, and shelf pins that do not come in the box with the cabinet. So don't look for them there. There's always separate hardware boxes. It doesn't matter how big your job is with Conestoga. They pack all the hardware separate. All this weight and metal banging around inside the cabinet would surely damage things, so all this is packed separate. I'm going to put the hinges and the shelf pins off to the side. We're not going to use that for our assembly. The shelf glides, we probably won't show that either, but these do mount a little bit differently than we show on our tandem install video. You will not use the L brackets on the back, so I probably will show a little bit on the drawer glides in a little bit after we're done with the box assembly. Okay, you'll notice it's an unfinished frame, so we don't have any foam down. That's okay, it's unfinished. Every cabinet with Conestoga is the same. We're gonna have two shoulders that we're gonna put glue on and then a deeper trough that the splines go in. We do not need to glue that. If you're doing inset cabinetry, you wanna jump to the video referenced at the bottom of the screen right now, which will show you how to put your inset hinge brackets on and your drawer glide brackets, the Tentex brackets, before you assemble the cabinet. Very, very, very critical. If you're doing inset, you don't want to build a box till you put that hardware on. This is an overlay job, so I do not need to put it on. So go reference that if you're inset, but we're overlay, so I'm going to go right into my gluing. And I'm going to put glue on both shoulders. Nice crisp beads if you can, and you don't need to use too much because it'll just make a smeary mess. When you put the cabinet side in, it all runs out. So both shoulders get a nice bead of glue. And then anywhere you have a cabinet panel contacting the frame, every horizontal rail is going to have a groove in it. That does not mean it gets glue or a panel. In this case, we have a bottom and we have our top spreader strips. This is nothing. So I'm only going to put glue on the outer edge of the top and bottom spline groove. We don't do the inner edge because then when you put your panel in, it's just going to squeeze out and make a mess on the inside of the cabinet. Okay, so normally, if you've watched a lot of our assembly videos, normally, and you still can do it, we would start with the cabinet sides. In this case, I'm going to show you a trick. We have a situation where we have two flush sides. It's a very deep cabinet, 30 inches deep, I think, or 27. These are really big sides, and they want to fall over, and I'm only one guy, so I'm going to show you a trick. Take your spreader strip, finish side in, splines down, and line it up with the center of the dovetail in the center of the spline groove on this vertical, and push that in, okay? Now what I can do is I can take my cabinet side and I can run my glue right here. Just a little bead where that thing's gonna go. And I put my cabinet side over that hanger cleat, or that spreader strip rather, and down in, get my dead blow. And now I've acted as a second set of hands where that cabinet side won't fall over. So I'm going to do the exact same thing on the second cabinet side. So now I have both cabinet sides in. Move these. And so that you can see, I'm going to try to do this from this side of the cabinet. We're going to run glue halfway up this dovetail. Not the full way. You start at the bottom, all the dovetail just pushes the glue out, and again makes a mess. So we're going to go halfway. I'm going to take my cabinet bottom. You have a finished side and an unfinished side. We want the finished side in, facing me is in, with the splines down. So you can see, I'm going to disappear on you here, but you can see I just line up my dovetails. And that panel slides down, get my mallet. And our intent is we want that gap at the bottom where this panel contacts the frame perfectly tight. We don't want any gap there if we can help it. And that looks good. Now I take my second hanger cleat, or I keep on hanger cleats, spreader strip, and I insert it. I don't need to glue it yet. You'll see why in a second. I'm going to spin this around so you can see. It's a beast of a cabinet, folks, I tell you. Now I'm going to come around to the front. All right, so once you have this down, now you can put your glue in up here. Just a little bead of glue there. And that spreader strip's going to hang out for a minute, because now what I have to do is prep my second frame. In most cabinets, this is where your back is going to go on. You'd be placing your cabinet back on. In this case, it's the second front frame. So I'm going to go off camera here for a second, put my glue on this frame the same way I did the first one, and then put that frame on the box, and I'll come back to show you that. Okay, for my very astute viewers, you'll notice that I put that spreader strip in upside down because it gets splines both directions going into the frame. I'm so used to cabinet backs where you don't get it. I had that reversed, so off camera I flipped it. I want my splines going into the frame. So splines facing the outside of the cabinet in both cases. I glued my frame up. I'm just going to lay this on here. Oh, yeah. Make sure the spline wasn't in the way. And all I got to do now, I just use the palm of my hand. You don't need to use the hammer because you're hammering on the frame now. I would just use my hand to try to get this to seat. And I got a nice tight gap all along my flush ends, both sides. If you want to, not a bad idea. If you have big case clamps, is to run, when you stand the cabinet up, is to clamp the two front frames, top, middle, bottom, and squeeze them together. So that's a pretty tight fit on my flush ends. I'm really happy with it. Now I'm going to squeeze this up. I might need to get I don't need my hammer. There we go. And those splines will go into that front frame, same as that one did. And this is where sometimes I will just use a clamp to hold that in until it sets up. This one you kind of have the pressure of the cabinet going down, but we do these often on our cabinets when we actually have to go through a nailer on the back, cabinet back. The clamps are nice. So that's the basic assembly. Now I'm going to stand the cabinet up off camera, come back in a minute and show you how to put the sink blocks, the sink false front blocks in. I'll explain that, as well as the drawer runners, because they go in a little bit differently than our tandem glide video shows. So stay tuned, be right back. Okay, now that our basic cabinet carcass or box is built, now we have to move to the inside of the cabinet, and I want to describe why this is a little critical. First of all, remember, your drawer box only operates from one of these two directions. It doesn't go both ways. So we have to figure out, you have to figure out which direction's operable. Again, on our particular box, both these sides are finished because the customer's using it as an island. So it's completely symmetrical. They can use it either way. So it doesn't matter for us. Well, let's say your L of your kitchen goes this way, this is your living room, this is your kitchen, and you want the drawer to open towards the kitchen. That's going to be affected by, okay, this is my finished end, this is my unfinished end, this is going against the other cabinets, so my drawer has to go that way. So make sure you're planning this correctly. The other thing that's critical about these BDEs, base double entries, to understand, normally, if you had a cabinet back, this L bracket mounts to the cabinet back. You've probably seen the video for it. Your drawer glide slides on and then it's hung from the front frame, or in the case of inset, from the inset mounting bracket. So this is what's holding up the tail end, the rear end of the glide. In the case of base double entry, we can't do that because there's no cabinet back. And we don't want to hang it to the back of the drawer. That would not be good either. So Conestoga gives us, in the cabinet kit for this box, you get these runners. It's got one finished edge, that would go down, and this goes against the cabinet wall right up in here, and we're going to show you how this works in a second. You're going to fasten that to the cabinet wall, and that flushes out the front frame opening with the cabinet interior wall, and now the glide will literally mount right to this piece of wood and be flush with your cabinet opening. So we're going to show all that in a second, but I wanted you to understand why this is critical for base double entries, primarily the direction your drawer goes, okay? So let's get to it, show you how these drawer glide spacers go in, as well as your false front mounting brackets. Okay, so we're going to put this bracket in, or not a bracket, it's basically a flushing out piece of plywood in here. A couple points I want to make on this. It's cut to size, so you'll see me slide it in here. It's cut to go between the two front frames, but it's pretty tight, and if you are jamming it on too much, you don't want to push your front frame back off your freshly assembled box. So you want to make sure, if you have to just run that through a table saw to shorten it up, it doesn't really matter if it's a little bit off the back of the frames. This one's pretty tight, it almost wants to fall out. So all we do is we take our stapler, we use the same staples we do for assembly. I've got a 11/16, almost a 3/4 flush end, as well as a 3/4 block, so my 1 1/8 will work fine. And I'm just gonna tack that on. And that holds that on nicely. We would probably now come back with some trim head screws or some not very visible screws, and try to put some screws in here to hold that on, but the staples do a good job of holding that fast. For our illustration, that works for you, and I'll put my screws in later. Now, because my island doesn't matter, I can put my drawer glide or my false drawer front brackets anywhere I want. I'm going to do it on this side. And the way this works is, we just run this up to the back of the front frame and over as far as it'll go, and now I got a hard point, and I can hold it there. And again, I'm going to take my stapler and being very careful not to run it too high on the frame. I'm going to tack that in place. I don't have much front frame here to get, so I'm not going to put it there. I'm running up against the back of the frame here. So that's enough that when I run a screw through here and here, that'll suck my drawer front on. So I'm going to go ahead and put this and this on this other side as well. And we'll come back and show you the finished product in a minute. Okay, now that we've got our brackets on for our drawer glides, those flushing out pieces of wood, what we're going to do here is take a level, put the level on the front of the front frame, and then get it level with your bubble, which I've done there, and then strike a pencil line across the bottom. And the reason we do that is we're now going to take our drawer track, put it in the opening. It's going to sit, because we're overlay here, not inset, we're going to sit it right on the front frame, back it off, I think it's 5/32 of an inch, I made a line there for it. And then I'm going to get it level with that level line I just struck. So on my pencil line, right there. And then we take our screws that come with our drawer glide pack and we put one in. I can let that sit there for now, but now what I'll do is run a screw in here, the front frame, and one more in the middle. And now our drawer tracks are running parallel. I can put my drawer in and we're done. So that's really your final step. Now it's putting on your doors, door fronts, the false door front, which we have a video to show that in our sink base video. That shows you how to put that false door front on. But that's pretty much a done cabinet. So I'm going to finish it up here and get it ready for the customer, but we appreciate you watching. If you have any questions on base double entry cabinets, give your sales rep a call, 888-211-6482. Thanks for watching.